all seeking connection to each other, to the world, to the spaces we exist in.
Poor sportsmanship right now from the lads.
1.85 for the national record.
Here's another chance, and it is a goal from
Wij zijn CVI is er aan neertrekken. Hij bal ligt mij het grond gevat. Ja, hij het grond gevat. En dan zien we
running that mountain up. Okay, so we will be doing this. More advanced, slightly advanced.
So is jou trolley reg? Want
I love it. I love it. So then
kickstart our countdown at number 5 with this one.
Op Netwerk TV se Klets Kompas gesels ons nuus van 'n Maandag tot Donderdag. Ons kyk ook na die weer en meer. Stories wat jou raak en stories wat saak maak.
They've made a mistake in denying me bail, and they've made several other mistakes in many other cases.
The channels that teach us something new or reflect our expression. So it goes beyond switching to the right station. It's about choosing the experience that can adorn the present, dressing it with our tastes as we expand our preferences, because what we are actually connecting to is boundless, limitless human energy. And this is the spirit of NTV.
Welcome to Namibia, where adventure meets tranquility. With Enjoy, you have access to a wide range of accommodations to suit every traveler's taste and budget. Experience the finest dining and hospitality Namibia has to offer. Booking your dream accommodation is just a few clicks away with Enjoy. Join thousands of happy travelers who have trusted Enjoy for their Namibian getaway. Your gateway to unforgettable Namibian adventures. Visit us today at enjoy.my.na.
My Zone presents My Zone Schools Esports Competition.
Still possibilities.
Round 1, 3, 2, 1.
We have 50 minutes to go. Caution. Yeah, no surprise there. That was always going to be a booking.
From deep three-point range, Green with
Join us on the 27th of July at the MTC Innovation Hub for an action-packed day of esports excitement.
Welcome to Namibia, where adventure meets tranquility. With Enjoy, you have access to a wide range of accommodations to suit every traveler's taste and budget. Experience the finest dining and hospitality Namibia has to offer. Booking your dream accommodation is just a few clicks away with Enjoy. Join thousands of happy travelers who have trusted Enjoy for their Namibian getaway. Your gateway to unforgettable Namibian adventures. Visit us today at enjoy.my.na.
A very good evening to everybody watching, either from home or those that are joining us here at the Namibia University of Science and Technology, the main campus in Windhoek, where we are coming live. We are having our second installment of the pre-election conversations that we are having between different stakeholders in our country to prop up conversations and make sure that Namibians are well informed ahead of November. My name is Toivo Ndebela, your host. And tonight we are joined by men only. and I have to I have to apologize for that because all efforts, believe me, were made to make sure that we also have a female panelist, but we could not pull that off. But we promised to do it better going forward. Tonight on the panel, we are joined by Tyitende. He's an independent political analyst, also an academic in his own right. We are also joined by Mr. Wise Immanuel. Also, everybody here is speaking in their own capacity. Wise is a trained lawyer. He belongs to the ruling party. He's a proud member of the ruling party. Welcome, welcome. And then we have, of course, Maximalliant Katjimune, who is also a member of parliament, one of the youngest in parliament, of course representing the Popular Democratic Movement. I suppose also very much also in your private capacity, but of course as the conversation unfolds later, you must also postulate the ideas of your political party. The topic for tonight is resolving youth unemployment beyond the November elections. In other words, we cannot just be talking about youth unemployment now. And then come November, the topic dies, everybody has gotten what they wanted to, and then it dies from there. So we need to find solutions to say, yes, there'll be campaigns, there'll be political rhetoric, but beyond that, what must then happen? Because we have a serious problem in our country, unemployment in general, but youth unemployment in particular, even worse, hovering just below 40% according to the latest statistics. So thank you for joining me, gentlemen. I'll start with you, Max. Because you are a member of parliament, and I know that you agitate a lot in parliament about youth-related issues. What is your current assessment of the situation regarding youth unemployment in the country? And how did we get here?
No, thank you very much, Mr. Ndebela, for inviting me to this very important conversation. Youth unemployment is a very crucial issue that we as the PDM have put at the very forefront of our parliamentary agenda. In fact, before the start of the 7th Parliament, there has never been a motion about youth unemployment ever in the Parliament of the Republic of Namibia. And it was the PDM, through a motion of Ina Ngari, that put a motion regarding youth unemployment, first of its kind ever in the Republic of Namibia. And it really postulates to you how important the PDM takes youth unemployment in the country. Mr. Ndebela, we diagnose the youth unemployment crisis through a three-legged approach in Namibia. Firstly, we have a problem with the number of learners that our basic education system is dumping on the streets. We know that the education system that we adopted since 1990, thousands of learners, either through at the grade 10 exit level or the grade 12 exit level, have been dumped on the streets. And those learners are unaccounted for. We don't know where they ended up in the first place. And they do not have an alternative. Firstly, an educational alternative, a serious educational alternative. And secondly, job opportunities after they're dumped onto the streets. So that's the first leg in terms of which we diagnose this problem. The second leg in which we diagnose youth unemployment in Namibia is that even for those that are able to complete grade 12 and go to university or vocational training center and are able to get their qualifications, even for that demographic, they still struggle to get into the employment market. So that's the second problem. The third problem, which is a very fundamental problem as it relates to the economy, is that the country is not having a big enough secondary sector to absorb, firstly, those ones that are dumped into the system by the basic education system, and also those who are not able to secure jobs with their own qualifications and are also looking for jobs in the secondary education sector and not necessarily in the tertiary education sector. Because when we take a look at countries like the United States of America, the UK and so forth, and are saying that their unemployment has now dropped to 2.3%, the industries that they are talking about where employment was created is not necessarily your office jobs, your tertiary sectors, but it's manufacturing jobs, it's retail jobs, for example. And we do not have a large enough manufacturing sector, we do not have a large enough retail sector to absorb the number of unemployed young people in Namibia. And that is how we diagnose this problem in Namibia, through a three-legged approach.
Yeah, thank you. Wise, your assessment of the unemployment situation in the country, especially as it relates to young people, and how you think we got here.
Well, is this on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's working.
Thank you, Toivo. I think I should equally express my gratitude for the invitation. I think when we are talking about the concept of unemployment, we need to be very clear from the onset that unemployment is a denotion of a void. What is that void? That void is lack of employability. How do you define employability? You can define employability by way of a product or by way of a process. Product being the set of skill, be it soft, hard, technicals, or otherwise, that an individual needs to have for that person to become employable.
Yeah.
Process, a component of process to the employability is a process that empowers somebody to be able to apply oneself. We are therefore where we are as a void of employability, such that, one, the training or the educational system that we have, to a certain extent, needs self-introspection. So such that we need to ask ourselves a question: are we training marketable, trainees and graduates? There appear to be a mismatch, between the skill that we are imparting on young people and what the market requires. So that's the first thing. The second thing, Toivo, is our economic structural arrangement, such that we know which sectors are capable of absorbing a large number of young people for them to be able to become employable or to become employed. We are paying less attention, to those primary sectors of our economy, so that we enable them to employ young people. And then, of course, the last factor that I want to talk to, there are a number of factors that are contributing to the status quo, but I just want to limit myself to 3 for the benefit of today's conversation. The third one is, we cannot talk about our thirst for employment without talking or verging on the concept of leadership. A leadership that is intentional, a leadership that is targeting and deliberate about creating employment. And I think as I come back to you in the second round, I will unpack for you, what are those deliberate actions that those that are leaders, including my leader here of parliament, what is that he need to do wherever he is? What is that Toivo needs to do wherever he is operating? What is that Bush need to do? And what is that Namwater need to do? And what is that UNAM need to do? So we need deliberate leadership, or leadership that is deliberate about resolving the problem. And to the extent that we have that sorted, we'll be able to resolve the social economic challenges, including the unemployment.
Wonderful. Rui, what is your diagnosis of the situation? The why seem to be pushing things to you guys as academics to say that the factory is not producing proper products?
Unemployment is not only a Namibian issue. It is a global phenomenon. If you look at the statistics worldwide by the International Labour Force Survey, you have about 40% unemployment, especially amongst the demographic that we are addressing here today, which is the youth.
Yeah.
However, like Immanuel spoke about the structure of the economy, the structural bottlenecks that are within the economy, the mining sector, the agricultural sector. But one thing that I've observed, which is quite interesting, I had this conversation 2 weeks ago with a friend of mine who is an economist. And he said, look, Rui, 25 years ago, if you had a grade 12 certificate, you were guaranteed most likely a job, either in the bank or in any company. And usually those positions is what they now require you to have either a master's degree or even a honors degree. So the requirements and the standards have changed over time. And that's because, which is a simple principle of economics, demand and supply. You now have more people that have qualifications. In the past, out of 10, you would have maybe 2 that have a degree. Now you have more than that. So that in itself is a problem. The other issue that concerns me when it comes to unemployment, he slightly touched on it. How do we define it? Unemployment is generally defined. The strict definition now is that those people that are available for work, they are looking for work, but they can't find work. It's very rare you would find someone who says that they're unemployed by choice. They are quite an insignificant number. But the question on how did we get here, I think that's one thing that we need to interrogate deeply.
Yes.
And I would like to hear from the panel as well as from the audience on how we can navigate that as a collective. But my observation has been the policy pronouncements of government since independence. What is it that government has done? And I think any person that says that government has not done anything, it's either you are mad, you are blind, or you are both. Government has done something. But the question is how much? Could they have done much more? And the answer is an unequivocal yes. We have seen the policy intervention since independence. There was TESEF, there was TPEC, and the strategic policy frameworks. If you talk about Vision 2030, you can talk about the national development plans that serves as the building blocks to achieve Vision 2030. How far have they fared in terms of addressing the issue of unemployment? I think this is something that we need to unpack, and I have quite a lot to say on that.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. So we'll engage the audience much later. So I will confine the conversation to the panel for now. Max, why do we have, because the latest numbers show that unemployment hovers, in general, hovers just below 20%, which many people are saying is actually a very conservative estimate, because they think actually that unemployment in general is slightly or even much higher than that. But the official numbers show 19-point-something% of the population. But the youth is just almost double that. Why is it that the young people are the most affected by this phenomenon?
Well, from a initial point of analysis, it becomes common sense that younger people are at the back end of unemployment because the older generation has obviously, been around for some time. They've been able to, set their foot into various economic, variables and so forth, and they've been able to establish themselves. So at a basic level of analysis, obviously there will be a disparity. But there is a deeper answer to the situation that we find ourselves in. One of the answers that we can find is what Rui touched on, to say that the world of work has changed fundamentally. 30 years ago, in fact, I was speaking to one of my lecturers the other day, and she said to me that when we were graduating from the Faculty of Law that time, the government actively came to the Faculty of Law to come look for the graduates and place them immediately into the world of work. That is no longer the case now, because everybody now today has an LLB, everybody has a doctorate in business administration and so forth. So that's one factor. But we cannot ignore the factors that I answered in my initial response, that we have a three-legged problem that is confronting us fundamentally. And that is, number one, the education system is failing as the basic education system, in that there are too many of our young people that are being dumped into the street at that very level. The latest statistics that were released in 2018 pointed to the fact that around 20% of young people do not complete grade 12. When you start from grade 1, they never reached grade 12. In 2023, last year, the ministry indicated that post-COVID, 30,000 learners never returned to school. Now, where are these learners? They are unaccounted for. We don't know where they are. And these are going to account for the unemployment statistics 10 years later, because there is no alternative for these learners. But overall, the economy is just not growing at an exponential basis as it used to grow. We are not producing enough jobs in the economy to absorb all our young people, and perhaps that is the biggest fundamental problem that we have to address before we address anything else.
Yeah, sure. So Wise, you were my SRC president towards the tail end of my stay at UNAM.
Yeah, sure.
And those years, 2006 is when I did my final year at UNAM. In my own situation, I graduated in April 2007 and stayed at home May, I think around June also. By July, I had a job, Mickey Mouse job, but I had a job. And I settled for it because my father was pressuring me, calling every week, did you find a job? Did you find a job? So I took a really minimal job, but I had a job. Nobody can say the same today. And what worries me about that is that society ought to be progressing. The pace of 2007 ought to be slower than the pace of today. Today, we are told that there are 8,000 graduate teachers at home waiting for jobs. And we are told that actually the vacancies are there. If you go to schools, the teacher to learner ratio, or is it the other way around, is actually very much high. Teachers are teaching 50, 60 children in a classroom, while the official number is about, 25, 30, roundabout. So the need for more teachers, especially in the public schools, is there. But we are told maybe there's no money to employ them and whatnot. How did we regress? How did the pace become even slower than it was in 2007? Your mic. It's fine. Just.
Well, Toivo, I think, while you were lucky to get employment just 2 weeks after graduating in 2007, I would like to believe that there were still, a notable number of your peers that couldn't also get job immediately. But that's not what I want to focus on. I want to speak to the common sense that the reason why we have a higher number of young people unemployed, it's proportional, to the growth of young people, population-wise. And as common sense would dictate, if you engage in a random sampling exercise, so the common is likely to be picked.
So let me stop you there quickly.
Yeah.
Because common sense also dictates that the growth of that segment or that population didn't happen accidentally.
Correct.
We ought to have known that people will multiply and
correct, and I'm coming to that.
Yes.
So reason why we are unemployed in the number that we are, it's for demographic reasons. that we are a large number, exceedingly high, comparing to any other age group. That's one. Two, the issues of experience gap equally comes in, that quite often we are told we don't have experience here or in that, and as a result we are not shortlisted for various jobs that we apply for. Three is the structural limitation that we have imposed on young people. You find that institutions that have the responsibility of employing young people, are imposing job requirement, knowing very well that these people are just fresh graduate from the university. But you are asking them to have 2 years, 3 years working experience from where a person has just graduated. And it goes back to what I indicated earlier on, that we need a policy position as a country that is known by everybody, by every institution, be it public or private, so that is compelling this institution to take on board young people, because that's the only way that they can enter the job market without any single record of experience to pull off. To the extent that we are not doing that, young people, even those that possess the necessary skill, will be out of job on mere and senseless reasons of saying, give me the experience. Put the person in the job, observe the person performing, and help the person to become better and bigger.
Thank you. So really the unemployment is higher, youth unemployment is higher in rural areas, and the regions that have been officially put out as having the highest unemployment rates are Kunene, Zambezi, Ohangwena, Omsati, and Kavango West. It makes sense quite fast if you know the demographics of those regions. And people are saying, because there are about 10,000 people coming to Windhoek yearly looking for jobs, coming from those regions and elsewhere. And people are saying, let's set up, let's create opportunities, employment opportunities in those areas. And I'm thinking, in economic terms, what could you possibly, really, realistically set up Kalongo, where I come from?
It's a good question.
To really stimulate real economic activity happening there, because it's a small community. If you're MTC or if you're, we have one bank there, we have a Standard Bank, a very small branch. Anybody who banks with any other bank has to go to Tapi or Shakati or Shikuku in our surrounding areas, because the market is so tiny it cannot accommodate more than 2 branches of banks in the area. Do you think it's practical to say, yes, let's create opportunities in those areas so that people do not flock to Windhoek and elsewhere?
Just to set the scene, if you look at our overarching policy document that informs policy today in Namibia, it's Vision 2030. And what does Vision 2030 say about what you are asking? It says by the year 2030, which is what, how many years from now? 6 years from now, unemployment in Namibia should be 2.3%. That's what it says. The building blocks that will allow us to get there, the NDPs, the National Development Plans. I want to challenge anyone to show me which of those National Development Plans were able to achieve their objectives in the various industries, mining, agriculture, what have you, to reduce the unemployment rate. We are now going to NDP 6 without having achieved NDP 5, without a rigorous review of NDP 5. We are jumping on to the next one without having had that success. Now, if you look at the sectors that employ the most people in the country, it's agriculture.
Yeah.
70% of the population derive their livelihoods from agriculture. But if you look at the Namibia Agronomic Board, and this is what people, I don't know, we have a general tendency of collective ignorance when it comes to this country, of just reading what comes out there. You have a state-owned entity that tells you that Namibia last year in 2023, we imported agricultural produce to the tune of $22 billion. From where? From South Africa. It goes a step further by saying, look, if you look at fruits, 96% of that comes from South Africa. Toivo, where you come from, Musati, I don't think there's a shortage of land there. We also know Oangwena region, unless you are cordoning it off illegally.
Yeah.
Oangwena region, we have 2 underground aquifers that will be able to sustain Namibia for the next 100 years. So there's land and there's water. Then you have the agricultural graduates that are graduating every year from the University of Namibia. I don't know whether NAST also produce agricultural graduates. There is no synergy or linkage between the Namibia Agronomic Board, the Ministry of Agriculture, and the tertiary institutions that produce these graduates. We have a land reform program where government advertises every year for land resettlement purposes. What the intention is when they are resettling people, of course you will hear issues of people that were affected by the genocide, especially our brothers from the Ovairero and the Nama community that were dispossessed. That ought to be the primary consideration when you reallocate people. But government is also saying, no, we also want to ensure that we have food security in the country, which is a big issue at the moment. We know for a fact that 1.4 million people are facing starvation because they are food insecure. They are hungry. In the Omaeke region, 2 weeks ago, more than 80 people died because of hunger. But agriculture, since 1990, we had 7 green schemes in the country. Shati Kongoro, Tunda, and all of those green schemes.
Yeah.
Today, 2024, there are 11.
Yeah.
34 years. I don't know whether we should call them green schemes or now dry schemes because they are not producing.
Yeah.
Government has tried to enter into agreements with the private sector.
Yeah.
It is not working. But those industries, especially in rural Namibia, they have the potential to arrest the unemployment situation. We do not need to have rural to urban migration. But for as long as government institutions are operating in silos, each and every institution is doing their own thing, we will keep on talking about unemployment for the next 100 years. Another issue is the political will. We have our brother here, Max, who's in the National Assembly. I don't think there's an appetite where politicians look at agriculture as something that can add real value. And I'm not only talking about planting oranges, planting apples. I'm talking about the value addition change, creating our own juice, for example. And that agricultural industry has the potential to create thousands of jobs for young people. But what are we doing about it? I can give you another example. The 2 Kavango regions, Kavango East and Kavango West. It is a vibrant laboratory of wood in the entire country, including the Zambezi region. But the Chinese, with the permission of our government, exports wood in raw form to China. They do value addition there, and they bring the furniture back to us. This furniture that we are using, even these tables that we are utilizing here, Namibia does not even produce toothpicks as a country. But we have our brothers here at Arab Bush, those furniture that you see, good quality furniture. Why is it? Why are we restricted to enact laws, even the Procurement Act, to say all local furniture, school desks, furniture that is used in the clinics, in universities, wherever the case might be? Why don't we compel all institutions, private and public, to source that locally? Ramatek's building, as we speak, it's empty since the Malaysians left. It's empty, underutilized. There's no sense of urgency to really address those issues. And I think, Toivo, from a policy position, is that government is operating in silos. Each one is doing their own thing, despite the fact that they have a common agenda, which is to address unemployment, income inequality, and poverty.
Very good. We'll do one more round of questions before we engage the audience. Max, you, young people, have been told repeatedly, especially by SWAPO leaders, government leaders, that you must create your own jobs. So why are we complaining? Why can't you just create your own jobs?
No, Toivo. You know, that is a fundamentally misguided proposition. And I'll explain why. It's correct in principle, but it's premised wrongly. I, at the beginning of this year, introduced a motion in Parliament that called for the support of SMEs in the country. In that motion, we found that almost 70%, if not more, of small, medium enterprises in Namibia fail almost immediately after they commence operation. And that is because there is no financial backing and support from government and other sectors in terms of our SMEs. So then one puts a question into this rhetoric that we young people must create our own jobs and we must not be job seekers. Which jobs are going to be created by 70% of SMEs that fail almost 1 year after they commence operation? That already tells you that this is a fundamentally misguided proposition. It's based on the wrong premise, because those same SMEs you are posturing that they should create these jobs for young people are actually the same SMEs that are not supported and that are failing. So this rhetoric that has been postured by our Minister of Sport, our Minister of Finance, that no, you people must actually create your own businesses, is just an excuse, a cover for the fact that government just has failed to create the necessary jobs available, because even those jobs that must be created in the business sector are not going to be created because our businesses are not functional. Secondly, there's also this other posture that is elucidated by government, that there is a mismatch between what people are studying and the job market. I can guarantee you now that even those industries that government is saying people must study, even those particular industries, graduates are still suffering to get a job. They are still struggling to get a job. In 2020, the first cohort of veterinary sciences, the doctors for animals from UNAM, graduated. That whole group remained unemployed for a considerable amount of time, until they had to come to Honorable Vendani to intervene and write letters to say that, UNAM, you started this program, you said there's a demand here, people are going to be employed, and now they're unemployed. It's not only that group. There was another group from, what is this, Kembes at the coast, Sem Nyoma Kembes, the ones that specialize in marine biology and fish and those things. Government was saying that's a priority field that our students must study. Those same students right now, once they graduate, are fundamentally struggling to secure a job, which means these two excuses are actually just a cover-up. The simple fact of the matter is there is no jobs. There is no jobs because the economy has failed to grow, and that is up to government to address that reality.
Thank you. Yeah, give that. You can give them that one, just to be sure. So why is there's a paper that was Namibian Sun did an article out of it this week. It's a paper by Roland Brown, a local economist. And he was talking about how the economic hardships can affect or influence, rather, election outcomes. He did this interesting analysis that the ruling party, because of course the liberation history, which is a proud history of our country, carried the ruling party for a considerable time, especially in the 90s. And then as the nation evolves, people started paying attention to real life issues now. Now this guy Roland says that during the Pohamba time, when our economy was really thriving, and the party was really doing also very well, SWAPO was also doing very well in the elections. And then he talks about how between 2015 to 2019, roundabout, when we started really having a lot of challenges in our economy, that we saw the results that we saw in 2019. I'm wondering if you fear, especially as a SWAPO member, that if this situation carries on, that it could actually, the ruling party could be in trouble in November. Your observation as a party member?
If you mean if the unemployment rate continue to escalate?
Yes, because I fear that there's very little that can be done now to salvage the situation between now and November, unless there are clear articulations of policy interventions that, for example, Netumbo Ndaitwah can implement when she comes into office, if she wins.
Okay. Toivo, election is a window for reflection. It gives an opportunity to each and everybody, particularly the political actors, to reflect on, where they have done well and where they probably, where there was, an underperformance. Similarly, the election for this year is no exception to that. So it's presenting that window of opportunity for all political parties, including my own party, SWAPO Party of Namibia, to equally reflect. Now, what every voter needs to know is that, there are promises that politicians do make, and what voters take into account is the sincerity that comes with it. The sincerity that accompanies the promise that political parties are making, as well as the sincerity that comes with the self-reflection. I think at the point where we are in unison as a nation, that, youth unemployment is exceedingly high. And as I have indicated, to resolve the unemployment is not only a responsibility of the president of the country. It's not only the responsibility of parliament. Through parliament, where all parties are represented, act of parliament or laws are made. Those laws create various institutions, public entities. These public entities are headed, some of them, by people that are not SWAPO members.
Yeah.
Those institutions have the responsibility of creating employment toward resolving the problems of unemployment that is prevailing. So it's a collective responsibility.
The buck stops with who?
So, of course, the buck stops with the president. But as you may have heard, that is, if you have minded listening to the SWAPO presidential candidate, she has been on record, putting forward and laying bare her commitment toward addressing various social economic challenges. She is very passionate, and I think my fellow brother here, who is an academic, has brought in the perspective from a researched corner that agriculture is one of the greatest sector that would contribute to the resolving of unemployment. The SWAPO presidential candidate has been on record, speaking on why it's important to reactivate those agricultural or green scheme that have became dormant, and why it's then important for us to think about cooperative economics, among other things. So there is a clear pipeline or a clear plan in terms of what is that my candidate, for instance, is going to do when it comes to issues of unemployment. Toivo, you have heard, and this has come out through various expression of people talking about creating of regional sectoral industry. And this is partly what Reese spoke about, that there is no reason why we cannot set up an industry or a factory in each and every region in this country. That it's a factory that is a factory of young people to produce toilet paper and supply our public offices in each and every given region. If a sectoral industry that, for instance, of young people that would create, uniform, school uniform for all young people in this country, and all that it requires is a deliberate, policy intervention or policy direction by the leadership that those factories be set up, and all government institutions should procure from those factories. So where does it then bring us? It brings us to the point that we need to be very clear, toward our commitment toward, agri-entrepreneurship.
Yes.
So through the agribusiness that my brother here has spoken about, we also need to think about the idea probably of how sport development in general would contribute to the employment creations. Think of, for instance, where all SOE in this country are directed that each SOE you contribute toward a particular sport code. Those clubs, sport clubs in the regions each regions would have a sport clubs, each constituency would have a sport clubs, and the Ministry of Youth and also the institutions my sister Bush is heading, plus the ones that is under the good doctor, Dr. Felix, will then be able to facilitate this with together with the Sport Commission, that each player is then going to get that plays in the regional league, for instance, gets a salary of 1,500. So that is how we are going to address the issues of unemployment. Let every region, has a recording studio, for instance, so that young people with talents, musical talent, can actually get the opportunity to record their talents in those regions, and as a result become self-employed. There are so many opportunities. What probably seems to be lacking is innovation and intentional commitment on the part of the leadership, as I have indicated earlier. But I think this time around, as far as the SWAPO party is concerned, I think we are clear. So the tone has been set, and that commitment has been conveyed to every Namibian.
Wonderful, thank you. The last question before we speak to the audience goes to Rui. There is this paper that was released in February, which could be considered a bit late now, but I don't think much has changed since the paper came out. And it predicts the Namibian election outcome. It's from Fitch, the rating agency. It says that we forecast that the ruling party, SWAPO, will emerge from the 2024 legislative election with a weaker majority. That is now the parliamentary one. If they're talking about legislative. However, our core view is, it essentially says that SWAPO will win the election, but with a reduced majority. So a very marginal win in their prediction. And one of the policy implications for that, according to them, is that SWAPO will then be shaken by that outcome and embark on very radical economic interventions, such as indigenization policies, where you say the oil companies that are coming here must now give us more than the 10% that people are complaining about. Give us more. Green hydrogen, give us more. The mines, give us more. And they predict now that if that happens, it will scare off foreign investors, because we want to go and set up in Namibia, but if you have to cede a considerable amount of your equity shareholding because SWAP want to appease the locals, then you have that situation. So then, if that was true now, if this prediction was true and it comes out like that, do you do that as a government to appease the people and risk losing the very people that you're saying come to Namibia? How do you balance the situation, making sure that you appease the people and investors at the same time? Long question, but yes.
To understand where Namibia is today, you need to look at Namibia as an entity or a company, and you ask yourself, how does it look like? At the ideological level, I would argue that the ruling party, and I've made these comments publicly already, the ruling party has been severely wounded in the 2019 elections. President Kainkop, may he rest in power, in 2014 garnered 87% overwhelming support from the Namibian electorate. You fast forward to 2019, he got 56%. So it's like an A student becoming a D student. So that's the results that he got from the Namibian people. Now, what does that tell you if you are an observer of our politics and our policy disposition in the country? It tells you that to a large extent, when you're talking about the socio-economic conditions that permeates throughout society, is that the ruling party is currently suffering from an ideology of no ideology. In other words, they do not know where to take the Namibian people, what to do with the Namibian people. You are basically on your own. There's no center that is holding now in the ruling party that you can pinpoint and say, you know what, there is direction in terms of where we are going as a country. Compared to the first 15 years after independence, SWAPO used to be the center that used to hold this country together. There used to be a common denominator to say, look, guys, this is where we are going, this is what we are going to do, and things like that. You spoke about Pohamba's presidency. Under Pohamba's presidency, you need to remember there were a lot of policy proposals that were quite labor intensive. One of them was the TPEC, the Targeted Intervention Program. The 90,000 jobs that they promised, something like 7,000 to 8,000. Now, notwithstanding that, there were still jobs that were being created, even though it was temporary. Mass housing was another example. Billions was spent with the aim of creating 180,000 houses. Nowhere near that figure. Some of those houses were collapsing in Swakopmund. Now, if you look at the party in its current iteration going forward, I also made the analysis that despite its internal problems, because remember, the decline in support for SWAPO has absolutely nothing to do with the success of the opposition. SWAPO's problems are internal. They are the author of their own self-destruction, starting from 2019 to where we are right now. Yes, the party will get a reduced majority in the parliamentary elections, but my analysis remains that they will win. They will win because the opposition is fragmented. They do not speak with one voice. Everyone wants to become a president, even though they're not telling us what they're going to do differently. Now, if you look at it from that perspective, and what is happening right now in our political landscape, Toivo, it worries me. It worries me in the sense that if you look at the leadership potential that is out there, you analyze it, it's horrible in its detail. You cannot look at one particular individual and then you say, you know what, with this person, I have looked at their policy enunciations, I've looked at the rhetoric that they have uttered, and you're like, it actually makes sense. People are promising people everything under the sun. And they themselves do not understand what they are saying. If you question them, if you go deeper, ask them, what do you actually mean when you say shared prosperity, for example? Is it prosperity for your family? Is it for your friends? Is it for your Kamboroto? Is it for everyone? Who exactly are you referring to? And they will not be able to give you a clear answer. When someone speaks about value addition to our natural resources, just ask them, what do you exactly mean? Break it down for us in layman's terms. Are you going to ensure that critical rare minerals are going to be produced locally? We are going to create jobs in the mining sector. The Engineering Council of Namibia has 1,600 registered engineers right now. And we were told 10 years ago, if you are an engineer, civil engineer, electrical engineer, you are most guaranteed a job. I have friends of mine with Masters in Engineering from Wits University, unemployed, disillusioned. Discontent breeds everywhere. But my fear is, Toivo, I know the elections are 27th of November. We were telling people, go and vote, especially young people, go and register to vote. But the manifestos are not out. You are not enticing them to go and register to vote. Yeah. Even if you're releasing your manifesto 1 month before the election, 2 months before the election, you've already lost a huge segment of the demographic that you wanted to participate in our democratic process.
Absolutely. We will engage now the audience, but before that, Wise, quickly, I want to be fair. Your party has taken a battering in the last few minutes. Everybody, especially from Ray, they're saying there's no center that holds. The party is all over the place now. Please, I know that you're not here in the SWAPO delegation, but it's your party. Please, think tank member. I'm even a member of the think tank. So please, your party has taken a beating from that man, if you have anything to say. But if you think that it's fair, you leave it there.
Yeah, you know, what Lee is saying this now, yeah. You know, but when I go engage him bilaterally, I know he will just smile and say, that was just, you know, that was on Toivo's platform.
Yes, already.
So that's what he would say when we walk out of here. But I think, to be quite frank, it's an over exaggeration, you know, to say that the SWAPO party is suffering from an ideology of no ideology. Yeah, so it's an over exaggeration. The ideology of the SWAPO party is very clear. Okay, in terms of what we want to do, you know, for this country, in terms of what we want to do for every Namibian. So the electoral performance of the party in 2019, as he rightfully cited it, you know, it's a performance that is to be attributed to a number of factors. You know, of course,
fish rot.
Yeah, that is one of them. Issues that were done, but ask the central governing structures of the party, whether the members of the central governing of the party, ask them whether they knew of what that was of what was happening or what those individuals were doing. The answer will be a big no. So it was a clandestine exercise taking place, as it would happen in any other system, that you find individuals that lack ethics and they would try to do certain things. And of course, those individual actions would have a bearing on how the voters are evaluating the performance of the party at the end of the day. There are a number of issues that has happened also in public space, in public offices. So yes, it's a SWAPO party-led government, but some of the under dealings that may have happened within the government system are not necessarily perpetuated by the SWAPO members. So we are taking the blame, simply because we are, the ruling party in charge of government, but not everything that happens in government is necessarily being perpetuated by a SWAPO member. We employ, Parliament is part of government, is one branch of government. Parliament employs a number of patriotic Namibian, those that belong to SWAPO party and those that belong to other party. If Parliament is failing to pass a progressive law to address a particular social problems,
your party is the majority in Parliament.
It is an issue that should be attributed to the MPs in the number that they are. So I think it need to be looked at really in the proper context, in order for one to be able to pass a fair judgment. Okay. There are times that individuals that are given responsibility, the individuals that are members of my party have been given a responsibility, and of course they may have been caught napping, so we are aware of those incidents. But this time around, I think the tone is very clear that we want to do things differently, and in fact the presidential candidate is committed in coming with a team of competent, people that will really take Namibia to the promised land. I think it's fair to say that at this point in time.
Okay, thank you very much. So we'll now engage our audience. Whoever has, I think just a few house rules. I'm just kidding. Yeah, so brief questions, brief comment, so that we make the conversation as interactive as possible. We can take the first 3 questions from anyone who raises their hand. Any questions? Yes, please. Yeah, no, please, just as long as you try to be as concise as you can.
Good evening.
Yeah, I think it's okay.
Yeah.
You can be here on TV.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'm Natalia Shilongo. Thank you very much for the insightful discussion. As a youth, I share the same sentiments with each one of you, although I'll agree to disagree on certain aspects. So the unemployment pool is crowded by both skilled, unskilled, and semi-skilled individuals. Max mentioned that the market currently cannot absorb all skills levels. Wise elaborated on the curriculum and the role of institutions in addressing the subject. Equally important, Rui mentioned that the requirements and the standards changed. And these are all significant and crucial components of our current youth unemployment. But there's another serious component that I was actually just thinking about listening to you guys. This is the AI and fintech innovations, which are already taking effect. With these 2 variables, human jobs are being replaced by machines, and even worse, absorbed by robots. How can we then prepare so that as we seek for a solution to the youth unemployment, we are comfortable that the solutions will incorporate the effects of this AI going forward, because 3-4 years from now, it's disastrous. It's no longer just education. It's no longer a master's degree, an honors degree. It's now the market.
Thank you very much. So we've taken note of that comment. Any other comment or question? Okay.
Good evening. Thank you very much. Such an insightful conversation indeed. But as an unemployed youth, I think I would have appreciated a fellow unemployed youth on the panel. My question is, now in light of the upcoming elections and considering the significant impact of youth unemployment on political stability and voter sentiment, how do you then, to Max and, sorry, I forgot his name, how do you then plan on reconciling the need for immediate job creation with the long-term structural reforms required to then address the systemic unemployment issues? And what measures will you advocate for in Parliament to ensure that these reforms are not merely election promises, but are also backed up by sustainable political will as well as cross-party support? Thank you.
Okay. Any other question before the panelists talk to us? Okay, we'll answer those questions for now. Then we'll come back to the audience. Max, there was something about you. I must admit the last speaker had a good point. Actually, I suppose it doesn't matter anymore now because it didn't happen, but I actually wanted to have an unemployed person on the panel. The problem is that when you do that, some people, and that is exactly one of the devastating impacts of unemployment. People are even ashamed to come to something like that and advertise their joblessness. And you can understand where it's coming from. But it's a good point. A few brave ones would have probably have come to that.
You should take her name. She's unemployed.
Yeah, we have taken note of her name. Please proceed.
Yes, Toivo, I would attempt to answer the first question partly and also the second question in great detail. I think we must approach the fourth industrial revolution narrative with a great deal of pessimism. Why do I say this? The fourth industrial revolution narrative, which has now become now also a fifth industrial revolution narrative, only benefits the developed North. It only develops the developed North because the developed North has gone through a systemic process of developing their nations. That's number one. They've gone through a first industrial revolution. They've gone through a second industrial revolution. They've gone through a third industrial revolution. So there's great systems, technological systems for them to now go to a fourth industrial revolution. When you come down to the global south, you would notice that some countries are still in the second industrial revolution, if you analyze deeply. So we are not even at the third, we are still at the second industrial revolution. We have not put those technological systems in place to migrate to a fourth industrial revolution. Secondly, the developed North has great social welfare systems in place, which means, for example, if you go out of a job right now, the state decisively intervenes, steps in, and supplements your income. Our friends in Germany, for example, if you're out of a job, I think they get equivalent to 6,000 Namibian dollars or something like that, if I'm not mistaken, but it's around about that figure. Here, we have absolutely no social welfare systems in place. I can be earning $42,000 today as a member of parliament because that is a salary. It's public knowledge. You can get it in the government gazette. But if I'm unemployed today, tomorrow I can be in poverty. I can lose my house, I can lose my car, I can lose, because there's absolutely no system in place to support you as an unemployed person. So in relation to job creation, we must be very, very careful about embracing this narrative about robots must start replacing our worker in KFC and our retail worker in ShopRite and so forth. There is just nothing like that. We have not reached that level at all, and we must develop first our technological systems before reaching that level. A third element that also inculcates into your question is the question of age. We know that the developed North is aging very fast. In Japan, for example, it has come to a point where most of the workforce is so old and the jobs are everywhere, but the workforce is simply not there. The global South, in contrast, we have one of the youngest population demographics across the world. So we still do need our young people to be absorbed by the workforce. So I submit that we must reject the 4IR narrative and approach it with the very maximum amount of pessimism. With regards to, I couldn't hear very well, it was very far. With regards to the question of my fellow young lady right there, it was in regards to our interventions regarding this existential crisis of youth unemployment. The PDM has been very forward-thinking in regards to unemployment. And I mentioned in the beginning that the PDM is the first party since independence to ever introduce a motion on youth unemployment. We said that this particular crisis is an existential one and it must be addressed, and let us start with the legislature, and that is why Inayengari introduced the motion on youth unemployment. In that motion, we first and foremost say the following: let us declare this particular problem a state of emergency. And some people are very pessimistic about that. They say, what are we going to do with a state of emergency in regards to youth unemployment? The beauty about a state of emergency is that the resources of the state and maximum attention are pushed towards resolving that particular existential crisis. At the moment right now, there is a state of emergency regarding drought. And people maybe think that when we declare a state of emergency regarding youth unemployment, the state will employ the police and so forth. There is just nothing like that. What we are saying is, once you declare a state of emergency, the maximum resources, the thinking capacity, and the attention of the state is geared towards resolving that particular problem. And the problem that we've been encountering is that the SWAPO government has treated this issue as a backseat issue. Yes, they do speak about it, but there's no political will about it. It has taken a backseat issue, and it does not receive the adequate amount of attention it ought to receive. This country has, I saw in your statistics that we have about 40% youth unemployment. I disagree fundamentally with that analysis. My analysis tells me that we have about 75% youth unemployment in this country. Yeah. We have 75%, around 75% youth unemployment in this country. If you have a teaching post, one teaching post or two teaching posts, and the amount of people that applied for that particular teaching post are 8,000 young people. If you have 12 jobs, the other day Temperature Club in Commersdal advertised around 12 positions for, waiters and so forth. There were thousands of young people that lined from the door of that club until the entire road ahead, lining only for 12 jobs. That tells you that we have a crisis here. And if we do not resolve this particular crisis, it's going to be a problem, because there are countries that had revolutions because of unemployed youth, and we must start taking this particular crisis very seriously. In regards to our interventions as the PTM, because I speak as a representative of the PTM here, and we're going to elections, so we have to put forward what our interventions are. Our 2019 manifesto, our 2024 one is going to be released very soon. It has to go some few systems and processes in the party before it's approved. We say the following. We propose 3 policy interventions. Number one, we say that we have a policy intervention called One Constituency, One Factory. And people ask us, what is this One Constituency, One Factory? We say that in each and every of our 121 constituencies across the country, there must be some sort of economic activity within that constituency. Where, for example, regions like Kavango West, Kavango East, Zambezi, Ohangwena, and Kunene, which are, by the way, the 5 most poorest regions in Namibia. The 2022 Namibia Statistics Agency report said that those 5 regions are the most multi-dimensionally poor. The level of poverty in those regions are so exceptionally high that the significant majority of youth in those regions are economically inactive and they're unemployed. So we say, let us at least kickstart those regions by having an economic activity in each and every constituency around the country, but particularly in those regions like Kavango and Zambezi and so forth. Secondly, we say that we must have an unemployment register in each and every constituency. I was very surprised that I can guarantee you now, the minister does not even know how many young people figuratively are unemployed across the country. Sometimes she says a certain number, sometimes she says a certain number, but we do not know. They do not know how many young people are unemployed in this country because there is a lack of data from the local authority level to the regional level to the national level as to how many young people are unemployed. So to get a better picture, we say that it must be a peremptory provision that we must know how many young people in a particular constituency are unemployed. Thirdly, we are a party that believes in the free market. We believe in the free market, and we say that the free market must be able to flourish with limited support from government. And to that effect, we say that we are going to roll out a massive youth enterprise startups for young people, where we say that we are going to give loans up to collateral-free loans up to 500,000 to each and every young person that puts a tangible proposal of business, of a business venture for government. So that is a broad 3 policy interventions that the PDM is putting forward as we head towards the 2024 elections. And we say that by 2029, if elected into government, we do not promise the world. We say that we must at least reduce unemployment by 11%. That is the start if we're elected into government. Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. That was elaborate. If you want to respond to some of the issues, I just want to acknowledge this Reinhold Blue on YouTube, who asked the question, what solutions do panelists have for our contemporary problems with the exception of agriculture? I think I just want to acknowledge your question, Reinhold, but I think what Max spoke about now veered off agriculture. I think he proposed other solutions beyond agriculture, and I think to that extent your question might have been answered in part. Please proceed.
Well, I think, Toivo, insofar as technological shift is concerned, I think we will be in denial if we don't acknowledge that technology is coexisting with us. And simply because it is coexisting with us, it's impacting, on the employment scope, such that some people are being retrenched as a result of new technology or new innovation. That is it's a striking reality that is with us, and we must accept it. Now, the question after the acknowledgement, it should be what is to be done. And what is to be done is that there must be a deliberate effort to reskill and retrain our staff. Those that are entering training for the first time, they need to be trained so that they know they are technological literate. And they should then be able to coexist with the technology as a way of maintaining and retaining their job. Those that are already employed, they need to be reskilled. And that's why institutions and organizations and companies, in fact, before they retrench employees as a result of technology changes, they need to show cause as to how they have endeavored to reskill and retrain their staff. I think that is insofar as the technological shift is concerned. Insofar as the questions of my sister there is concerned, I think what I want to speak on it from 3 perspectives. The very first one is that we must demand as young people, of course, using the youth organizations as our mouthpiece, to demand that, one, there must be a national internship policy in this country. A policy that compels all employers in this country to take on board, either student or fresh graduates on internship programs, so that these people get practical experience or practical work experience that will enable them to enter the entry job market.
Yeah.
Two, there must be also a policy direction that compel, value addition in the various production space in this country. I can tell you, Toivo, if you go in the mining industry, you probably just have about 20% of work being done locally here, or value addition being done here, and the rest is being done outside. We need to domesticate the value addition chain. And that again, that require a deliberate and intentional political leadership. The third issue, in my view, Toivo, I have spoken about issues of, art, investing in the art industry, sport industry. But I think all SOE in this country that get subsidy from government on an annual base or by the end of their financial year, they must submit accountability report, depicting the extent to which they have employed young people.
Okay.
So that require a policy direction. And then the very final one.
Yeah, briefly.
Yes, the very final one, Toivo, I think we also need to be very deliberate in terms of the enforcement of our retirement age.
Yeah.
So there is no point as to why we would have some institution at 60 years of age as their retirement age, but some have become innovative and came up with what they are calling communal policies that have uplifted the retirement age to 65. I think there should be uniformity.
Yes.
And in fact, whoever reaches the retirement must go to their farm and raise their grandchildren, so that they can give the chance to the younger one, including my sister over there. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. So what we'll do, take just one more question, because we are left with 7 minutes. I just want, if there's any other question before we wrap up quickly. Yes, there's a question there. Just one, because we are supposed to cut off by 8 o'clock.
I must acknowledge the young lady sitting behind me, the director of the National Youth Council. And I must start off by saying that I must be a bit disappointed that we do not see somebody that looks like me on the panel. And to be deliberate, we must say that those that are the majority of the presidential candidates, that gender, that's what I'm asking for. Second to that is that we need to note that in as much as we want to be deliberate in this country, we need to see where do we want to focus. Let's assign ourselves to one or two issues, focus on those and succeed. But most importantly is, are we effective and efficient with the current industries that are running? Are they maximizing potential and business processes to enable them to grow? When we say, and I must agree with the panel, my brother Maximalliant there, we give credit. Our late president, His Excellency, Dr. Gengob, specifically ensured that there was consistent youth engagement. And he said that the solutions come from you. So again, we must say that, the conversation must be with those that are in the situation that it is. And that's why I'm acknowledging deliberately the young lady behind me. We want to see a Namibia where young people are allowed to create shadow boards. For the board of the power utilities, the future is renewable energy. Do we have a youth shadow board that is looking into what happens and propels the future? We cannot deny that inevitably, as you age, you shall not exist. So let's give Namibia to who owns it. If 70% of the population is them, let them speak and let them be represented and let them stand. So the challenge becomes, are we deliberately allowing them to take ownership of the resources, run the resources, make the necessary mistakes that comes with any business process and a start of it so that they can gain the experience? Now we push them into the system. I mean, my brother Maximalliant is still just an MP, he's not president or vice president of the opposition. And when is he going to make those mistakes to know exactly how to lead? And that's what I'm advocating for. Let's create a Namibia that allows it to reflect the demographics and let these colleagues learn so that eventually when they are there, we are able to grow. Because nobody will come from anywhere else to come and run our country. It must be us.
100%.
I thank you.
100%. Thank you. So yeah, okay. No, I think Rui, just to be fair to you, you have the last throw of the dice. Wrap up this conversation quickly. You have 1 minute just to really your closing remarks. As far as the direction of our country is concerned, our young people are crying. They are crying out loud and they are looking for solutions. It's just, it's unbelievable. We are at a very difficult stage right now, and I can understand really why there's a lot of frustration among young people. How do we appease them going forward? They are citizens of our country.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Toivo. We have a crisis in our politics, even though we do not have a political crisis yet. Political crisis in the sense of what's currently happening in Kenya. We have seen the Generation Z having told the political elite they are tired because for too long, especially in countries being governed by former liberation movements, we had incidences where the old are governing the young in the interest of the old. Benefits that need to accrue to them is always delayed, is always postponed. You're always told about a better future. But for them, in terms of accruing those benefits, it's always now. So the young people, the future is in their own hands. They need to come to the table because if you are not at the dinner table, you are on the menu. Thank you.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you. Thank you, Rui. Thank you, Wise. Thank you, Max. Thank you to our audience. It was very small, but not small. It's actually a very intimate gathering for me as far as we are concerned. We are very, very grateful for everybody who has taken out their time to be with us, and to our viewers at home. Thank you very much for tuning in. We hope to catch you again on the last Thursday of August as we continue our monthly series of conversations around things that matter in our country. Thank you. Yeah, Chapman.
Thank you. Now you can